Okay, so for chapter 3, we're going to move towards answering the question, how does who I am affect my performance at work, on teams, in my personal life? And this is an important thing to understand because it goes without saying that individuals are all different. We have different ways of thinking. We have different, what we call personalities. And so the goal of this chapter is to start to understand how these differences among individuals impact our performance. As an example, many of us are good at different things. Not everybody is good at the same thing. So let's assume that you work as a salesperson at Sephora Cosmetics, and your job is very interactive. You speak with customers, you try to sell customers the fragrances that you think would appeal to them, you laugh with customers, you're very interactive. And then let's assume that you're doing a really good job at your work. And suddenly you were asked to switch your job to become an accountant, right? Now, being an accountant is a lot different from having a sales job. Accountants tend to spend more time in front of a computer, crunching numbers, maybe not speaking to people as interactively as the salesperson at Sephora. And maybe some of us can be good at both jobs, but for several of us, our personalities might steer us towards one job versus the other. So it's very, very interesting to talk about personality differences and how these differences actually impact our ability to perform. So as we talk about personality, let's go through what we call the big five personality types. And the big five personality types is essentially an easy way of describing personalities. You might find that you fit more into one category than the other. You might find that you fit into several of these categories. So there is certainly no one size fits all. But hopefully, as we go through this, you can see parts of yourself in these personality types and maybe even see parts of others whom you know or whom you work with. So the first personality type to discuss is what we call the extrovert. And the extrovert tends to be a personality type who is very outgoing, very talkative, very sociable, tends to be very assertive, and also gets a lot of energy when he or she is around other people. You might know some extroverts in your own lives. And extroverts tend to be at their best and at their most creative when they're interacting with people. They don't need a lot of quiet downtime. This, of course, is as opposed to introverts. Introverts tend to value some downtime. They tend to be most creative and most effective when they're in a quiet space. Of course, they do interact with people and they're very sociable and friendly, but they tend to require more downtime in order to be at their best. So extroversion is one of those first personality types that we come across. Number two, what does it mean to have an agreeable personality? Well, an agreeable personality is somebody that is cooperative and tends to go with the flow, tends to be okay with just about anything, right? Very easy to get along with. For example, if you and your friends or family members are looking to go to lunch and one of your friends proposes a restaurant to go to, if you have an agreeable personality, you might say, sure, that's fine. I don't have any preference. If it's good with you, it's good with me. So agreeable personalities. The third type of personality is what we call a conscientious personality. The conscientious personality is the responsible person, the dependable person, the person who is achievement oriented, the person who sets goals and works really hard to keep or achieve those goals. Someone who has a strong sense of obligation, right? So if someone needs to get up early the following morning to go to work because they have an important assignment that they need to do at work, the conscientious personality is likely to go to bed early the prior night to get plenty of rest and to sacrifice his or her own fun for the benefit of getting the job done the next day, okay? The conscientious personality is also very likely to set a schedule or a game plan and stick to it. So that's conscientious. Number four, the emotionally stable personality. This is someone that tends to be relaxed, very secure, and very unworried, even in really stressful situations. I certainly know some personalities like this. You probably do too. It seems that no matter what goes wrong, they're always okay. They're never stressed out. Okay? So emotional stability is that fourth personality dimension that we talk about. And then finally, openness to experience, number five. The personality type that is open to experience tends to be very curious about things, very open-minded, very open to new ideas. The open-minded personality, if you work for someone who has an open-minded personality, then that manager might be more interested in your ideas. They might be more likely to change the way they do things and open to your input. They might be more welcoming of people who think and look and act differently from everyone else. So openness to experience and open-mindedness is that fifth dimension that we talk about. We'll talk in a minute about which personality tends to be better for different things and which personalities tend to interact positively to create really dynamic organizational environments. But first, I want to spend a minute talking about the word proactive. You might hear people say that this person or that person has a very proactive personality. And a proactive personality is someone who is very unconstrained by the situation, someone that doesn't let things get in the way of their progress. If you're the type of person who says, I am going to get an A in this course, even though I have so much going on and I have so many priorities, I'm not going to let these things get in the way. I'm going to take initiative. I am going to ask questions to the professor whenever I have them. I am going to do my readings, and then I'm going to post questions in the discussion forum so other students can benefit from my questions. That is the nature of a proactive student, a proactive personality. Now, if you are a proactive personality, proactive personalities tend to work really well when their manager is also proactive. In fact, the research shows that when you and your manager are both proactive, then your commitment, your job performance, and your job satisfaction tends to go up. I can also tell you that proactive employees are very valuable when it comes to the hiring process. As someone who used to hire people to work for my teams, I can tell you that when I would interview people, I would look for signs that they would be proactive, that they would be willing to ask questions, that they would be willing to make suggestions, that they would be persistent and make sure that nothing stood in the way. So if you do happen to be a proactive personality, and there are ways that you can improve in this as well, you are likely to be valued by employers in the future. If you know any entrepreneurs, either personally or from TV or news, people like Elon Musk, for example, entrepreneurs tend to be very proactive. Why? Because starting your own company is extremely difficult. There are many obstacles along the way. And if you don't have a proactive personality, you're never going to be able to manage through those obstacles. So keep in mind, the proactive personality is highly sought after and extremely important when it comes to managers and employees who want to get things done. Now, I just said that we all have different personalities. Nobody's exactly the same, but how important is personality for job performance? Does personality actually make any difference in terms of whether you get your work done, whether you do a good job, whether you succeed? And the fact of the matter is that our personality characteristics are really likely to have a big influence when we're working in situations that are unstructured and don't have a lot of rules, right? You can imagine if you're working for a manager and he or she tells you exactly what to do at every point in time during the day, then there's kind of no room for any personality, right? But on the other hand, if you have a manager that says, I need your help. I need your help coming up with new ideas. Anything is on the table, right? There's no idea that's a bad idea right now. So give me your honest thoughts. be creative, and come back to me in a week and give me some of your suggestions. That is a pretty unstructured activity. So that gives you the freedom to be creative. And it's those types of jobs where your personality tends to shine through the most. I spoke a moment ago, so I'll go back to that slide about these 5 personality types. Can we make any conclusions about which personality types are better for which situations? We can make a couple of general conclusions. So look at number 3, conscientiousness. Conscientiousness tends to have the strongest and the most positive impact on our job performance. And that kind of makes sense, right? Because if we're conscientious, that means we have a strong sense of purpose and obligation. That means we have a strong sense of commitment. And these principles could be applied to anything, to a sports team, to a school, to a corporation, even to a family, if you play a management role within your family, for example. Conscientiousness tends to have a very direct correlation to the quality of work and the performance that we do on that job. Another conclusion we can make is number 1, extroversion. So extroverts tend to be more successful as salespeople and as managers. And again, this shouldn't be too shocking because the extrovert, right, is more likely to get energy and to enjoy speaking and interacting with people. And that's exactly what salespeople and managers actually do. Probably a third observation we can make is agreeableness. Remember, agreeable employees are very good-natured. They don't take things too seriously. They roll with it, as we might say. They're good under pressure. And so agreeable employees tend to be more likely to stick with their jobs and not quit at the first sign of trouble. And then number 4, emotional stability. This tends to have a high correlation with people's job satisfaction, partially, I think, because people who are more stable and especially more calm under pressure tend to be less stressed generally, and they tend to burn out a lot less quickly than people that are less emotionally stable. So I would summarize this by saying if you are in a position in the future to interview people and to consider who you might want to hire for your team, and if you want a particularly engaged employee, right? We talked earlier about employee engagement and what it means to be engaged. Engaged employees tend to have conscientious personalities, number 3. They tend to be a bit more extroverted, but they tend to be a little bit less agreeable, right? So if you ever want to hire for engaged employees, you will want to look at things like conscientiousness and extroversion as 2 of the drivers that are likely to predict whether someone is going to be an engaged employee.